Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Hello, hello, hello. Seniors in the house. How are you? How are you guys? Let me know in the chat. Can you hear me all right? I take that as a yes. So let's dive right in, guys. Last week we covered FENIX protocol and we analyzed it. So we went into the Blaus of the Litepaper, and the reason I really like to cover FENIX is many. Number one, it's a very exciting project. It has very interesting tokenomics, and it's a very lightweight, very nice, but very powerful project. Number two, it fits very well into the Zen ecosystem, and it gives Zen utility. And it's a very good merge between the two projects. Number three, why I like to cover it is because I want other developers to also see how you can build protocols within the Zen ecosystem, how you can utilize Zen, how to structure your project, because I think FENIX has done a very good job in presenting their idea to the community as well. So you can really get inspired and take. I'm just going to change my screen. Sorry. Yeah, there we go. FENIX. It's about FENIX. So Johan and Johad have been working non-stop with updates on this protocol since last week, and made many changes. And the way they do things is a way that I also respect, because they have this iterative approach where they work with the Zen community in the making of this protocol, just like we did with Zen, right? Because once the contract is deployed, it's an immutable contract. It's deployed. You cannot change it. So now is our chance to really make changes to FENIX protocol and to make it as good as possible. So, you can't build protocols like an introvert. You got to expose yourself to the pain curve, and you got to build with your community and use the hive mind. And you got to bring that hive-minded community into your creation, into the existence, when the creation comes into existence as well. So, because if you just have a static vision is a sign of a non-functioning learning process. You can't. I see so many protocols. They have a clear vision of what they want to do, and then they stick their head down into the creation of that. And then 2 years later, the world is different. It's something else. So you need to work fast, iteratively, with quality, and use this hive mind in doing so. So this video right now is going to be a further deep dive into FENIX protocol. I suggest you watch my previous stream that covers more of the basics. But today we have a special guest here on Education. After Effects on the sound effects there. We have Joe Blau. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome.
What's going on? Thank you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How's your day? How you been?
I've been good. I've just been really busy trying to get some of these updates out, and then trying to get everything finished and get ready for the next steps in the process. So code review, getting ready for testnet, and then going to mainnet, all that stuff. But it's been good. It's been good.
How excited are you in this process, in this creation, to make this protocol?
It's actually been really fun because the community has been amazing. Lots of really good suggestions. The feedback has been great. Both positive and the critical feedback have all been really good. So I think that the process overall has been a really good process, and it's been fun to just work with everybody and get the contract built and taking all the feedback and work with the community. So it's been great.
Amazing. And you very quickly managed to build a your own like sub community within Zen. Phoenixens. What do we call you? What do we call us there?
Yeah, the word we're using is Phoenicians. So those are like the
Phoenicians.
first people. Yeah, yeah, it's a play on the word Phoenician. So it's like the first people. That's who we are. So we're the first community of a subset of Xenians.
Phoenicians. I like it because I thought about it. It's very important. It's about the identity and Phoenixians or something like that. It was hard to pronounce, but
Yeah, yeah,
Phoenicians.
yeah.
How do you
Phoenician.
spell it?
The real word is PHOENICIANS.
Oh,
But we
it's a
just
real word. It means something. It comes
yeah,
like
yeah,
what's a real Phoenician?
yeah. It's There were the people that were like that occupied Eastern Mediterranean, like the first people in 1500 to 300 BC.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So that's where we go for the Phoenix summer party
that's
on that
yeah. We have
island.
to get something. Yeah, there is probably an island there. It's obviously near Greece, so I would love to go there.
We have to find it. We have to find it. So
Okay.
let's dive right into the Phoenix protocol, because I made my stream last week. Here we go about it, and you've seen my stream, so
Yeah.
you've seen my interpretation of Phoenix protocol. So today you're going to tell me how Ryan Torres is in the house. Perfect, perfect. Prisma also. Prisma. We have Blue, Dennixon. We have the whole crew here with us today. Amazing. Cosmic Kid. Amazing. Dennis Nodala. I will never be able to pronounce your word. That is Nadvula. So you've seen my interpretation, and I thought we were gonna run through it step by step, so you could add your comments and your additions, and then we're also going to talk about all the updates, because a lot of things have happened with Phoenix, but I don't think any like super fundamental has changed. It's more optimizing the different functions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So let's see here, and we have the Litepaper here as well, and you can find it in the Telegram, guys. But I use this framework to dive right in, and the first step is to describe what is Phoenix, and this is how I would describe it, like in my first iteration, because you need some sort of elevator pitch to describe what is Phoenix that tells the whole story. So how would you describe Phoenix?
Yeah, so the way I would talk about it is by talking about the story that led us to why we needed to create Phoenix. So prior to Phoenix being released, and this was pretty much very apparent last year, there were lots of companies that built a lot of protocols that would promise you yield if you gave them your tokens. And we saw a lot of these companies fail over and over and over again. FTX was the last one, but Celsius, Voyager, BlockFi, all of these companies tried to have you give them your crypto, and then they promised you yield, and they continuously failed and failed and failed. So the goal of Phoenix is to pay you to hold your own crypto. And the way it does that is that the payment is just baked into the contract, and it just cuts out all of the middle people that would be in the way of trying to figure out how to optimize yield and optimize gains for you. And it's just a straight contract like that. So it's a very simple, high level concept.
You build in the yield optimization into the protocol, so any user, anyone's grandma, can come in and just press a few buttons, and then they are optimized.
Exactly.
More or less.
Exactly. And it's designed to be something where you, as the holder of the private keys, are fully in control of your funds, right? We believe in self-custody. And so we want to make sure that you, as the user, are not giving up your control to somebody else to have them try to generate yield for you.
Absolutely. So which is the like one-liner you would like to describe Phoenix? Is it we pay you to hold your own keys?
Yeah, basically,
Pay
Phoenix
you to hold your own
pays
crypto.
you. Yeah, Phoenix pays you to hold your own crypto. Is the kind
Right.
of one liner that we use.
And already here, if you get the question, like, which you are going to get many times, like FENIX is built on top of Zen, so to speak, because you need Zen in order to get into FENIX. But you like Zen is this horizontal cache, right? And FENIX is a vertical application on top. But if you were to describe Zen protocol, because it has a minting process, but and FENIX has a staking process, so to speak. How would you like describe, very simply put, very high level, the differences between Zen protocol and FENIX?
Yeah, so I look at Zen as kind of this onboarding tool. It is the adoption phase of a protocol. So normally what you would have is you would have somebody have to build this game theory mechanic for adopting people into a community into the same code that is also doing whatever you actually want the code to do, right? And so the way I look at Zen is kind of like building blocks, right? Zen is the tool that gets everybody to get their free tokens by just paying the gas to mint. It gets everybody to onboard. It gets the community in a place where everybody who shares the same ideas, the first principles, gets to be in this same kind of like lobby. Then once you get inside there, you have options. You can use the Zen native staking if you want to use that. You can use the FENIX staking if you want to use that. You can go use ZenFTs if you're really into NFTs and you want to use that. You can go use the reflection token NEX if you're really into reflection tokens or that type of reflection token and use that. And so you basically, once you're in the lobby, Zen does the onboarding. And then anybody who has an idea that they can think of, and obviously you want to take time to think through it, but anybody who has a concrete idea can then use the Zen protocol via the proof of burn to then build whatever it is that they want to build. And so one of the reasons why FENIX is able to be so lightweight is that we're using the power of Zen and the community of Zen as our foundation. So we don't have to build the tools to onboard everybody. We just have to present a compelling idea, and then we can help onboard people on. And the goal of FENIX is in the same thought process of teaching people how to use crypto in the proper way, right? Where they're fully self-sovereign.
Right. So it's an educational project as well. It goes a lot into it, and you're using Zen's horizontal scaling and stuff like that. And as you say, we got to build up a whole universe of alternatives, which follows the same theme of self-custody and first principles. So, very, very interesting. And the desired behavior is 100% correct, right? It's the user, in order to get as much FENIX as possible, you got to burn as much Sun as possible to get as much FENIX as possible. You got to stake for as long as possible, and you got to proof of precision, as I like to call it. You got to end your stake exactly. That's how you get the most of it. It's very simple.
Exactly. Yeah. Effectively, you make a contract with yourself to say, I will come back at this future date. And when I come back, contract, you will pay me out this amount, or I will pay myself out this amount. And if you break those rules in any way, shape, or form, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, because you're self-sovereign, you're responsible, that penalty that you incur will be redistributed to the rest of the Phoenicians who are doing what they say they're going to do.
Right. So we're going to dive into exactly how that works, as we did last week. But now we have Joe Blau with us, the founder of this amazing creation. And there's one major change, but we're going to cover that later. You changed the inflation to 1.61. How dare you? But you did it. So we're going to talk about that. And here is also very important to discuss the why, because as we talked about, Zen is connecting like-minded people from all over the world, and this narrative that you're describing here with where we come from Bitcoin and how we have sort of ended up on the wrong path, and you're also describing how FENIX fits into that, of course, later on. But that's a narrative that many of us here and me as well, to the highest extent, agree with. But it's a narrative. So how come you? And that's what's amazing with the Zen community, because we are from all over the world. and no matter what age or nationality, or it's almost like you feel more connected to Zen than your nation in many ways, right? We share so many of the same values here. So
Mhm.
how come you found this route, and how come you came here to this community?
Yeah, I think the
And
thing that
also, so how you ended up here, but also what's your experience of ending up with this narrative?
Yeah, so I would say a lot of what led me here is influenced by my background as a software engineer outside of the crypto space and the Web 2 space. And I spent a lot of time building lots of projects, lots of applications, lots of open source protocols that I saw get launched, and then I would see things happen from maybe the person who was in charge of the network that would go against what I actually wanted to build, and it was very predatory. So an example would be back in 2010, I think 2011, I was working on a protocol that I wanted to use that was built into Twitter. And at that time, the CEO of Twitter then had just taken over, and he had done similar to what Elon just did. He was the first person that said, we need to turn Twitter into a business. So all of the things that you were building on Twitter, you can no longer build those anymore. We're changing the way that the API works. You can't use this anymore for what you were using it for. And I saw that happen over and over and over and over again. I saw, censorship in YouTube from back in 2010 when I posted a video that I spent, 2 days working on, where I made the beat, I made the video, I cut up all the videos, I made this blend, and it was getting like 300,000 views in a week. And this was back in 2010. So there weren't that many people on YouTube. And YouTube just banned it. They didn't ask me. There's no way for me to appeal it. There's no way for me to say anything. And so the principles of censorship resistance and owning your own assets, that digital ownership that you can do, the concept that was introduced by Bitcoin, I think was very important to me.
Mm.
And I think that there's a lot of people in crypto that are promoting lots of different, I would say narratives. But I think the tried and true Bitcoin narrative of being able to own your own assets, your own digital assets, I think is really the thing that sticks with me the most. That's what resonates with me the most. And so that's what led me to crypto, and then led me to Zen by way of that same mentality. Because Zen was this first principles project. The only way that it has value is if the community gives it value. And the only way that it gets stopped is if everything has to stop, right? Because it's
Right.
on 10 different chains, and they would have to stop Zen on every single chain, stop validators on every single chain. And that's just something that's, the more people that learn about Zen, the more difficult that's going to be for it to happen.
Because okay, so many things I could go on a tangent there, but one thing that sticks out to me most maybe is the fact that you came in and made Zen.fyi, and the fact that you've been so to speak a victim of censorship before with your YouTube channel and all of that stuff, and lived through that. So the fact that Zen was deployed on so many chains, that must have been a strong have a strong appeal on you in creating something, versus if we were just on one chain.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really excited me about Zen was the fact that it went to multiple chains really quickly.
Mm.
And there was this concept that we used to use at Uber when I worked there, called land and expand. And so the way it goes is that if Uber was started in San Francisco, and if you live, let's say you live in Miami or New York or Denver, or or Stockholm or wherever, and I say, hey, there's this new service. It's great for getting around. It's better than a cab, but the only way to use it is to come to San Francisco if you really want to try it. That doesn't scale, right? What
Mm.
Zen did is it did the land and expand strategy. So it went to your chain, wherever you are, and it launched over there, and it allowed all of the people on that chain to mint free Zen and to participate in the first principles of crypto through the Zen protocol. And so what that does is it educates people at the base layer on that chain for the key principles of self-sovereignty, self-custody, and it shows them how to use the protocol the way it's designed to be used, right? You don't need any other person to mint Zen for you. Obviously, you can buy a Zen FT now, but at the beginning, you didn't need anybody to do anything else for you. And that design of going to the other chain and then having people learn about the protocol there instead of forcing them to come to your chain is really something that I was really excited about seeing, because it's something that I experienced in the past.
And it's funny you bring up Europe, because you worked there, and I saw, like, it's pretty quickly that they became a global phenomena and expanded super fast. And what's interesting with their expansion was that they grew so fast, so they sort of penetrated a city with their services, where they became so big so quickly. So it wasn't like they went to the city hall and asked for permission. They were just there one day, and the legislators just had to deal with it. They couldn't, because they were there and the demand was there, so they had to deal with it. And it's a nice parallel to what we're doing many times, because you talk about legislation today. So I like this concept of we got to code faster than they can legislate. I mean, if we can create something that has a super fast virality, the demand picks up that virality, and that's going to influence the legislative process. Versus if we just go to the legislators and say, "Hey, please, can we take over?" So, do you see the parallels of what Zen is doing here and what you did at Uber? Because you grew so quickly there.
Yeah, it's very similar. You have it's the kind of like ask for forgiveness instead of asking for permission, right? You show up on the
Right.
chain, you start increasing the gas, you onboard people are learning about the protocol. And then at some point, people on the chain are going to take notice, and they're going to say, oh, what is this thing that's increasing the gas, or whatever the mechanism is for adjusting the availability of the network. They're going to ask questions, and then that's what introduces the leaders of that chain to Zen. So,
right. Interesting, but with parallels, and also interesting with your experience, of course. So let's see here. Oh, here we go. And here's your co-founder, so to speak, as well. You've been writing all the contracts, and Johad, super nice guy, Johad. I know he's listening. Hello, Johad. How you found each other at the Uber, right?
Yeah,
you were working on self-driving cars.
Yeah, so I was early on the self-driving car team at Uber. We were on a team called the Human Experience team, and I was a software engineer working on user interfaces, and he was an industrial designer working on a lot of the hardware as well as the user interfaces that we were designing for the riders of the self-driving car. So that whole that interaction was where we first met, and we just became friends. I introduced him to crypto, and kind of showed him like the ropes back in 2017-ish, sometime like that, 2016, 2017. And that was really how we met, and we just stayed in touch. We didn't really talk about crypto that much, but we would go out and hang out, and we became friends from back then.
Right. Interesting. So and then you decided to create FENIX together, and but what you also did something. What else have you done? It's mainly been in Web 2, right? Were you at Amazon or something as well?
Yeah. Most of my background and my experience has been software development and creating customer-facing interfaces, right? So whether it's web or mobile, I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to build user experiences that make it easy for the customer to understand what's going on. So when I was at Amazon, I worked on a mobile point of sale system. So it's kind of like the Square checkout reader where you tap your phone on it and it checks you out. Amazon used to have one of those. And so there was hardware involved in that, where we had a credit card reader. And so I was there for a couple of years. And once that team stopped, they shut that team down. Somebody at Uber had basically poached me to start working on the same thing, but for self-driving cars. So going from using a phone with one sensor with a card reader to using an iPad in a self-driving car with, 60 sensors on it, tons of cameras, tons of LiDAR, radar, ultrasonics, all of that stuff. So that's how I ended up going from Amazon to Uber.
Interesting. And then you talk about user experience, because you came into design community, and I think you're a very good role model as a builder, because you didn't ask permission here as well. You just went straight in and created something, and you created Zen.fyi, which is an alternate user interface, because you thought what we did was great, but the user experience could be better, of course. So we're all for improvements here. Tell us a little bit about why you did it, and from the point of view of the user experience, what can we learn?
Yeah, so Zen.fyi really came out of my kind of like desire to understand how the Zen protocol worked, right? So I wasn't really paying attention to Zen at all. I did know about Jack because when he'd kind of like resurfaced in crypto, he'd made some noise in a bunch of circles that I'm in. So I knew about him. I actually tried to meet with him at, I think, Consensus last year in Austin, but it just
I was there. I was there too.
Okay,
yeah, maybe we met.
Oh well, I didn't get to meet him. I saw Charles Hoskinson though; he was cool.
Okay, I'd love to see him.
But yeah, so one of my friends, my really good friends, was like, "Hey, you need to check out Zen. It's launching in about a week. You should check it out and look into it. Just do some research and look into it." So I went to the Fair Crypto site. I looked at the contract, and I went to the testnet website. And I was like, well, this website seems pretty simple. And for me, the best way for me to understand stuff is kind of to build little like test harnesses and kind of design something around it so I can see, because I'm a very visual person, right? That's how I ended up in this human experience world. So in my mind, I can figure stuff out if I can draw a picture in my head. And so Zen.fyi the first version took me maybe like 4 or 5 days to write, but it was really just call the Zen contract, do a mint, end the mint and claim it, do a stake, end the stake and claim it, right? It was just very basic, just to understand the flow and, in my mind, build a mental model for how the protocol worked. And then from there, I just started to add more functionality that I think would give transparency for somebody who's using the product, right? And then also make it work for mobile, right? So I think one of the key things that I started to realize once Zen.fyi was running is that at certain parts of the day, most people that come to your crypto website are actually on their phone. They're not on a web browser. There's a lot of people with mobile wallets, mobile MetaMask, and all these other mobile wallets. And so making it accessible for the mobile device, making it accessible for the web, making sure that it works in the MetaMask app and also in other wallets, just making it as inclusive as possible. And then also dealing with internationalization, right? Because lots of times, if you're not American and you want to introduce this to somebody in your country, if the site is not translated into that native language, it's hard to use. So I spent a lot of time really just picking apart all the pieces that you would need to ship any, production app. And I built all of those things into it as a test to make sure that I could understand the product, and I could also understand an interface that would wrap around a clean protocol like Zen.
How do you feel about what you're describing here is that you could come in and see very quickly how it works. And that's because Zen protocol is super simple. It's just 400 lines of code, so you can quickly dismantle it and tear it apart and play with it. How important do you think that is for projects coming in and building on Zen protocol and with Zen protocol, that it's so that like the base building block we have here, it's not layers of complicated code. It's very simple to interact with. How much do you think that has a relevance for this ecosystem, this ZenFi ecosystem to bloom?
I think that's super important. If you look at the most popular operating system today, which is Linux, the reason that it's popular is because it has this fundamental principle, where everything in Linux just has one job. Every single command that you see that makes a user interface at the base level, everything has one job. And Linux runs every Android phone, it runs every iPhone, it runs a lot of servers. So it's on pretty much almost all the devices. A lot of the smart home devices, they all run the same thing. And so by making a system that is built out of a lot of simple pieces, it makes it easier for people to create these new experiences versus trying to make one monolithic thing that's super complicated. And that's what made it actually easier for FENIX, is because we didn't really have to worry about onboarding a bunch of people. Zen has onboarded 1 million people already. We already know that they know how to use MetaMask. Otherwise, they wouldn't be in Zen. So we don't have to explain that to them. We already know that they know how to have a web browser or however they got to the internet. So it removes a lot of the onboarding challenges that a lot of projects that are in crypto have, which is, how do I teach somebody how to use MetaMask? That's not a problem, because if you've minted Zen, you have to already know how to use a crypto wallet. So we were able to skip a lot of that and piggyback on that for that building block. So I think having these core building blocks is really key. And I think FENIX is just a core building block. The reason why it's such a small amount of code is just because we are using the building block of Zen for adoption. We don't have to have any adoption thing that onboards people and does C rank, G rank, and have to build that into our project as well.
Right, that's interesting. So the common themes here are self-custody and scalability, and we come from different environments. You come from Web 2 and but you've been a part of projects where it's all about scalability and getting a product out and be user-friendly to billions of people, both through Amazon and Uber, of course. And yeah, very, very interesting. And the fact that you then made the Zen is very simple and as a building block, and that made you not have to worry about all the different features of how you could scale, because you're scaling together with us. And as FENIX gets more adoption, that feeds back to Zen ecosystem as well. So it creates this symbiosis there. Yeah. Very interesting. So, and then we talk about the first principles. So this is the principles that you have mentioned. And how come you decided to build with first principles and highlight? Here we go. Sorry, we have a question here from the audience. Joe, what would you like to see when it comes to Zen? How do you see its future?
I would say getting more builders to integrate with the proof of burn mechanic. So I think one of the things I want to do after we launch FENIX is figure out how to help other people understand how to use proof of burn the proper way to make their contracts be Zen burners that integrate into the ecosystem. You know, there are lots of protocols on the web that have really good ideas, really good tokenomics, or interesting tokenomics, I would say. So, and there's these communities that have all of these protocols that they love, right? You've got, the drip community. You've got people that have different types of like gambling games. You've got all these different protocols that exist. And being able, the Ohm projects, right? All the derivatives of Ohm. You've got all these projects that could be Zen burning projects. It just needs somebody to take a look into it, figure out what the key value proposition is from that project, make a very simple protocol that burns Zen and gives you this new, Ohm token or drip token or whatever token, right? And so I think having a few people that know about those projects in their communities and understand how to build protocols on top of Zen, where your new protocol comes from burning Zen, I think is going to be super exciting in the future.
Right, interesting. And then let's talk about first principles. How come you choose these principles, and why do you think they matter?
Yeah, I think, when it comes to crypto, a lot of these principles really just fall into this concept of like an equitable distribution, right? Where you want to make sure that people that are starting are all starting on the same playing field. And I think about equity in the sense of we all have the same starting point. Now, that doesn't mean that we all have the same ending point, and it doesn't mean that your financial position is different based on where you start, right? So if you have $1 million and you got into Bitcoin back in the day, and somebody had $1 billion and they got into Bitcoin back in the day, the billionaire is going to be able to buy more miners, buy more computers, mint more Bitcoin than you are. So it's not fair from that perspective. But the opportunity that you have coming in and the ownership that you'll own in the Bitcoin pool is at the same ratio of whatever, your million to that billionaire's person. And then for you, once you have your equity ownership stake, that allows you to build whatever product you want to build on top of the protocol. And so this first principles kind of builds that foundation where, our code is simple. Obviously, we don't want any backdoors because that introduces counterparty risk. We want users to be in self-custody, right? They mint their own equity. The contract is run by you. If you don't push a button, nothing happens. There's nothing in FENIX that's automatic. There's no investor allocation. There's no team allocation, right? So that means that there's everybody who interacts with the protocol all walks through the same door, right? There's nobody who gets to walk through a side door or a top door or get in any extra benefit. If we all go through the same door. If you have $1 million and you want to get FENIX, you have to come through the same door that somebody with $100 that wants to get FENIX comes through. It's a fair launch. There's no pre-mine, which also goes to the pre-allocation. There's no address that collects any fees from this protocol. The only fees that are collected are given back to the community for onboarding people. There's no maximum cap, and that's just a function of the way the protocol is infinitely inflationary. It is a proof of wait, so you just have to wait. I know you mentioned saying proof of participation, so I actually updated that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's updated on the main website. The contract is immutable, and I think that's very important because, again, you don't want people to be able to change the logic and then find a bug. There are no admin keys, so again, to this, no backdoors. The supply starts at 0. So when FENIX launches, if you go check the contract, there's a unit test that launches the contract and says, what's the supply? It starts at nothing. The only value comes from the community that's putting value in. There's no management. Yeah. There's no management team. So, obviously we're going to be running FENIX.FYI, but there's nobody nobody has to manage the contract. It's just going to live on chain, and all the validators for whatever chain and the blocks that are produced will be managing it. It's a hyperstructure, which is a pretty interesting concept that I think you should definitely go Google hyperstructure and read about it. It's pretty in depth, but it really aligns very well with the first principles. There's no sacrifice and there's no ICO for this.
No sacrifice? Are you sure?
If you want to send me money, I'll send you my email. There's no sacrifice.
Okay, we're gonna put down our both addresses here later. So, I want some FENIX. So yeah, this is actually my favorite part. I'm gonna make this bigger. Let's see, because I call it innovation Lego, right? And this is the key essence of everything here to understand, because FENIX is a composition of many different previous examples of how stuff that has worked in their different compartments, and then you put all of these together. So what I'm very curious about is, in order for you to make FENIX, you have to have a clear vision and an understanding of all of these different protocols in order to sort of pick and choose the concepts and then put them together into something unique. So how was that process for you in seeing all of this and then combining these different? How did you then find the mix of this? And also, what was the light bulb moment of this? Like, when did you? How? I am very curious to hear. How did you figure out? Okay, if I take this and that, for instance, you're solving the share computation with the pools instead and stuff like that. So take us down that path of enlightenment and creation and Lego building.
Yeah. So if you want to zoom a little bit into the acknowledgements, it might be a little bit blurry. Yeah. So we can walk through the process, right? So obviously, I think FENIX doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's inspired by a bunch of other projects that have come before it. And we use different pieces and different ideas from different projects to build FENIX as a protocol. So I think the foundational project that basically nothing in crypto would exist without is Bitcoin, right? The way to generate value and store value and transfer value in a manner that is censorship resistant and has very low counterparty risk, right? So that's kind of like the fundamental building block that we need. If we can't make value in a way that's not censorship resistant, we lose a lot of those first principles ideas. The second idea that we took from is this contract that was deployed in June 2019 called Serenium. And Serenium is a time-based certificate of interest. It basically is the first contract that gave you trustless yield, right? Or pays you to mine your own crypto. And the Serenium has a lot of these really interesting concepts. It had like an adoption amplifier. It has a referral program where like you can refer somebody and get them in. It has all of these like core components of making you stake longer and stake more to get more reward. But what it does have in there is it has this very interesting mechanism where the inflation rate can change in Serenium dynamically by the day, right? So the inflation rate can be like 1%, and then the inflation rate can be like 50%. And it's voted on by this DAO. And Serenium is actually a project that's attached to some like game. It's actually not. It's part of a game that, it just the whole project failed. And it failed for, I think, a very good reason, which I'll get into later. But it has like bonuses, it has end stakes, it has redistribution penalties, it's got like an inflation schedule, it's got a penalty schedule. It has all these concepts built into it. And so it is that fundamental like time value of money or trustless yield protocol, right? And so that was the second thing that we took inspiration from, is this Serenium idea. The third thing that we took
they voted on the DAO voted on the inflation.
Yeah. So okay. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. So what happens is you could vote and change the inflation rate every day, right? So what that meant is that there needs to be a ledger that is kept of what the inflation rate is every single day, right? So every day you have this machine. Somebody has to click a button and update the inflation rate for the next day, and then it can stay at that for like a couple of days. And then somebody can click a button and update the inflation rate and drop it. And it went between 1% and 50% of inflation rate for the contract, right? So because it had this inflation rate that could change at any day, the inflation rate needed to be stored every single day, right? Because you need to know what the inflation rate is. The next idea that we took, which I think was very important, and I think this is what kind of caused Serenium to fail, is this T-share ratcheting mechanism, right? So what this does, and this was inspired by a contract called Hex, and what this does is this makes it so that everybody who starts within kind of like the same window gets an equitable start. So if I burn 10,000 Zen and I get 1 FENIX and I stake it, and you burn 20,000 Zen and you get 2 FENIX and you stake it for a year, we'll both get about the same rate out, But if I do the same thing and I burn 10,000 Zen for FENIX in a year, my rate is going to be a lot worse than if I did it today, right? Because there's this mechanism in the contract that makes it more expensive to quote unquote buy shares in the future. And I think that was the thing that made Serenium kind of fail, right? Is that Serenium didn't have any mechanism for increasing the value of the product as time went forward. It just had like it had an inflation rate, and it could be whatever. And if you got in today or you got in the future, it didn't matter. So it didn't really encourage people to be early and stake long and basically capture that inflation over a long period of time.
Early participation, delayed gratification in one.
All of that stuff didn't exist in Serenium. And then the other thing that Hex did was they made the inflation rate constant. So instead of this like 1 to 50%, it was just 3.69%. for every single day slot. And that's what really unlocked the next thing, which is the Uniswap pool. If you have this thing where you only have a constant inflation rate every day and you're printing constant inflation rate every day, the thing that kind of the light bulb moment for us was, well, if you're doing this every day and you know it's constant, why do you have to calculate it every day? Just calculate it at the beginning, one time, fill this pool up with all the inflation that you know is going to exist, and then just let people kind of get their piece. I think you gave an example of a pie, right? So fill the pool up at the beginning, You don't have to have any machine that goes and calculates every single day, this is the inflation, this is the inflation. It's a constant number. You already know what it is. You can pre-calculate it into the future to whatever date you want. And for us, we have a 55-year staking window. So because we can pre-calculate it, we just fill up a pool with all the inflation. And then your stake is how much of that pool do you end up getting? And that was really the light bulb moment. And that idea came from me playing around with Uniswap V2 liquidity pools and seeing how the liquidity is managed by me getting in the pool and me getting out of the pool, and understanding that I own a percentage, like a piece of this circle. I own a piece of this pie. And anytime someone does a transaction, that transaction gets put in the pool and everybody gets it, but I get a piece, my relative piece of the pie. So that's
where were you when you thought, was it a moment in time you can locate, like that's when or of course it grew with time, but can you pinpoint to one point in time where this light bulb came?
I might have been in Hawaii, I think. So but
you make some story up later, but I mean that's amazing, right? Because that's the truth. Like, that's, if you want to understand FENIX and why it's amazing, that's what you need to understand. That together with those two Lego blocks, you don't need this heavy computation, so it saves a lot of work. And with this way, you calculate your stake at the start, the start stake. You calculate how much you get, and so you know how much you're going to get at your chosen maturity date. But there's two different computations that calculate if you don't do that, so to speak.
So that's really the magic, is because we saw that the hex inflation rate was constant. We just realized you can just pre-calculate it, and you just have to pre-calculate it based on the longest stake.
Right.
And once it's pre-calculated, you don't have to do this, because in Serenium, like I said, there is a ledger, so you have to get the inflation for every single day. But once you don't need to do that, you can remove all of the calculations that make it expensive to in Serenium end of stake or in Hex end of stake, right?
Just poof. It's
so
fantastic.
So the gas costs go from a very high number for a maximum lay stake to a consistent low number for a maximum lay stake. So that was really like the unlock. I was like, oh, if this is consistent, then we can just fill up this pool, and it works very similar to Uniswap. The inflation just gets pumped into this pool. And then the last concept that we got our idea from is obviously Zen, right? When I started to see how Zen was launched on all of these chains, it started to open my mind of, oh, this now allows us, because we're following first principles, anybody can technically deploy FENIX on any chain, right? Because there's no value for me redeploying FENIX on a specific chain. One of the things with Serenium is that Serenium had this thing where it gave free Serenium to like Litecoin users, Bitcoin users, Ethereum users, Bitcoin SV users, and somebody else, right? And so if you were in one of those groups, you would be incentivized to redeploy it on any other chain. But because there's no advantage for anybody deploying FENIX, it can spread a lot quicker. And so as long as Zen exists on the chain, FENIX can exist on the chain. And there's no added incentive for the person who deploys FENIX to launch it, right? And so that fact makes it so that it's easier to onboard people, because there's nobody who owns some outside supply to say like, oh, that person who held, X amount of Bitcoin at this date is always going to get a lot of Serenium, or who held X amount of Litecoin at this date is always going to get this amount of Serenium, right? So we removed that kind of like objection, and we were able to make it so that we can launch on cross-chain, and it's basically the same equitable start for everybody on any chain. If you do a stake in the first week on, Avalanche, you're going to have the same equitable start as somebody who did the first week on Ethereum, or the same equitable start as somebody who does the first week on OKC chain. So all of those chains have the same equitable start. They have the same inflation rate. They have the same bonuses and the same everything. That's all calculated. So it makes it really easy to do this land and expand technique, right?
There are some early incentives, but we're going to get to them later, I guess. But to incentivize even early participation for the early adopters here. But it's very interesting how this cocktail mix of innovation comes together, right? Where we have Zen and you can expand it everywhere. It's lightweight, and then you can sort of live in symbiosis with that and deploy it on so many different chains. And if you have something very powerful like this, you just need the idea, the tokenomics to be powerful, and then you can leech on to the because Zen is so powerful because it of two things: because it's lightweight and we can deploy it everywhere and it works everywhere, but also you have viral tokenomics built into the formula, so you can just utilize all of that for this and deploy it everywhere else too.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And then you took all of this and then you sort of merged into your own. So this is the Lego you put together and had your light bulb moments and figured it out. And then you took all of this and you merged into your own principles here. You came down to equity, time in market, and penalty distribution.
Yeah. So in terms of the equity concept, really what I wanted to highlight there is that we want to make sure that when people start in FENIX, if they start around the same time, they have the same opportunity, right? So people that come in the first couple of weeks, couple of months, they have the same opportunity all together, right? And their opportunity is going to be slightly better than somebody who comes in 6 months later, and that's going to be slightly better than somebody who comes in a year later, and that's probably going to be a lot better than somebody who comes in 5 years later, right? So it's this thing where if you're early into a project, it rewards you for being early into the project. That's what the equity piece is. Time and market is it's an old, I think, Warren Buffett quote where you want to spend your time in the market. You don't want to try to time the market. So for me, I'm not really big into trading, right? I don't like buying something and then trying to trade it real quick and I cannot read charts at all. So for me, I like to just put my money into something and then go away for 5 years and then come back and hopefully it's like more than what I put in, right? I'm very chill.
Built in.
Yeah. I'm very chill. I don't really like to push a lot of buttons. So unless I'm programming. So for me, this idea is that we want to give very long time horizons, right? And we do give a long time horizon. Our max stake length is 55 years. So because we have this long time horizon, we can make the contract allow you to select a long time preference and delay gratification for a long time. Right. And then to tie with that, we also have this concept of penalty redistribution. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to try to minimize the loss in the system, right? If somebody says they're going to do something, you can obviously, there is a way to save somebody's stake. Like if you know that I'm not going to be able to, come on the day and end a stake, you can end a stake for me, or you can save the stake for me or defer the stake for me. But if somebody like just falls off the planet, right? So let's just say Satoshi was in this thing, right? And he had mined his first million Bitcoin, and we have no idea where he is right now.
Are you Satoshi? Is that what you said?
No, there's no way.
Okay.
No way. But if Satoshi was in the system and he had just let his stakes go, he had just let his equity go. The idea is that we want to redistribute his Bitcoin to the people that are still active in the system, right? We want to minimize the loss in the system. So what the penalty redistribution does is it helps keep the system kind of like as full as possible and keep the active tokens as high as possible. So we're not losing a lot of tokens to people that are not participating or not following up. And instead of just making them disappear, we just give them to the people that said they were going to do what they said they were going to do.
Yeah, we're gonna get into exactly how that works a little bit later. But it's very, very interesting that you found your own innovation in all of this, and I get like this part. I think we will have to cover a lot of times how you solve that computation problem. But I have so many more things to cover, but that's really what like the gist for people to like, okay, that's how it works.
It's probably like 2 lines of code.
Yeah.
It just says like, hey, if the inflation rate is longer, then calculate what the inflation should be and just fill up the pool. That's it. So
can stakes be sent to a different address? Do you want to just quickly address that?
Stakes cannot be sent to a different address right now. The way that the contract is designed, in order to keep it as simple as possible, is that when you create your stake is tied to your address. The design of the contract is so that you shouldn't have to make a whole bunch of addresses. You should be able to build, if you want to do a staking ladder, you should be able to do that just on one address and build your staking ladder from there, and then not have to go and create stakes over and over and over again.
But people made so many addresses now already with Zen. You're telling them they cannot reuse them for FENIX. They don't have to.
No, yeah, they can, but they don't have to. There's no benefit in spreading apart your FENIX, and there's no benefit in doing short stakes, a bunch of short stakes.
But you can only. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
You can only do one stake at a time per address, or can you do many stakes from one?
You can have multiple stakes per address.
From one
you could
address.
Do 100 stakes, yeah, in a ladder, yeah. So if you wanted to say, I want to
100 addresses, can I do 200?
Yeah, you can do as many stakes as you want.
You
could do 1,000 stakes, a stake that comes out every other day for the next 50 years if you want.
Amazing. Okay, that's very interesting, because I think that's what many people are wondering. Yeah, hit some likes, guys, because I think many people need to see this. So explain what we see here before we dive into the Blaus of the mathematics. What are we looking at here? This is from a user perspective. It's very simple. But it looks very complex when you see it the first time. Like there's a bunch of different lines here. And in my video last time, I don't know, you can do it very high level because there's so many more things to cover. But like this defer end, that's details. They don't need to know this right now. But
so
go ahead.
So on the left, you start off with Zen, right? You're going to have some amount of Zen. You're going to burn your Zen, and then you're going to get FENIX. The FENIX is going to be in your wallet liquid. So you can create a liquidity pool. You can do whatever you want with it. But the only benefit for FENIX is to stake it. So the only option you can do once the FENIX is liquid is start a stake. Once you start a stake, you just have to wait. You're just waiting until the date that you said you wanted that stake to end. If you end before that date or after that date, you get a penalty. That's what the early end penalty and late end penalty are. If you end very close to that date, you have like a very minimal penalty, almost no penalty. Right? If you end on the day or the day after. And so that's what happens once your stake is done. And once your stake is done, you can either save your stake for later, or you can click end and mint your original principal plus all of your yield back into your wallet. And then you can start all over again. So those are the steps.
Right. So it's very simple. You just have to, as a user, you just have to get Zen, burn Zen, and get FENIX. So that's all done in one step, right? And then you start your stake and you choose your time, and then you end your stake. It's very simple. Like anyone can do it. And here you come. So this is like really what I like also. Simplicity, guys. They managed to build all of this, describe it in one model looking like this. Like the whole story here is in one picture. Like, I mean, we have to realize where we're coming from. We're coming from DeFi and super complex protocols, and it's everything is super complex. But you can just show this picture and tell the whole story in a picture. What's worth to notice, you've updated this. So this is actually the latest version, but which I think needs some maybe further development, perhaps. But let briefly describe which one do you want to zoom in on? The last one, maybe.
Let's look at the bottom one.
Right.
Okay,
so the very high level, because I like the first time I looked at this, I'm like, what's going on here? But you sort of have to see it, right? With everything, it's with everything, guys. It's always you and a system that you're interacting with your economic energy in time. Yeah. It's always the same ingredients. So this explains everything. But how do we see it?
So one of the things I'm doing here is I'm violating one of the rules of charts, which is always label your axes. That's the problem. And we'll update that. Johad and I can work on and fix this.
You're a graph violator. Shame on you.
So, okay, so this chart is broken up into two pieces. On the left side, you've got your staking window, and on the right side, you've got your penalty window, right? So, sorry, or your end staking penalty period. So on the left, you can do a stake from 0 days to 20,075 days, which is 55 years. And the longer you stake, the more rewards you'll get. So that's what that yellow line going up means. If you stake longer, you'll get a higher yield out of the end of your stake, right? That's what the dark yellow.
But you don't
Now,
have to choose 55 years. You can choose 100 days, and it will follow the same graph anyway. So, right.
Yeah, you can choose any day between one. I think one is the lowest you can choose, and then 20,075 is the highest you can choose, and that's required. So the only things you specify are how much FENIX you want to stake and how long you want to stake it. Those are the two inputs. That's it. Now the light yellow on top where it says penalty and it's above reward, that's what's going to happen as your stake is maturing. So as your stake is maturing, the earlier you end your stake, the more of your penalty will be redistributed back to the staking pool. So if I only complete a portion of my stake and I don't finish the whole stake, the stake will be the part that I complete will be deposited in my wallet if I end my stake early, and the rest of it will be redistributed back to the penalty pool. So that's what that light yellow on top means. Now on the right-hand side, where it's pink, it has the same type of mechanism where the reward, the penalty, is distributed back to the pool for people that do not end their stake in a certain amount of time. So after you have 180 days, I think that's like about half a year, to basically end your stake, or you lose everything. If you end your stake within day 1, 2, or 3, you effectively don't lose anything. It's like 99.999% or something like that. But if you end your stake after a certain amount of time, you will start to lose some of your profit, right? And so that's what that black line is. The black line is the profit line. So if you have a stake that's 1 day, you need to complete 90% of your stake in order to get 100% of your whatever your principal is. So if you put 1 FENIX in and you stake 1 FENIX for 1 day, you need to serve 90% of that day in order to get your 1 FENIX back. If you do a stake that's about 10,000 days and you stake 1 FENIX, you need to serve about 72% of the 10,000 days, so about 7,000 days, before you can get your 1 FENIX back. And if you do a stake for 10,000 for 20,000 days, you need to serve about 37% of your stake to get your 1 FENIX back. So that's what that profit line is. And then on the penalty side, you will be in profit up until about 143 days after your stake ends, and then you'll start losing profitability real quick. Because our assumption is if you've waited 143 days, we're assuming that you're probably not going to get it. So we just have a very sharp cliff that falls off at the end.
Right. That's a long time. You have long forgiveness, but it's necessary, because if we're talking about a product that people might use for their kids' college fund or whatever, like I want to save to some grandkids or whatever, and we're talking about decades potentially, then you want a little longer, more forgiving penalty window, because with Zen protocol, for instance, it's a much shorter time period, so the penalties are pretty harsh in comparison. After 7 days, you're down to 1%. But I think this is like, I have to congratulate you, Joe, in the way that you are a visual learner, but also presenter. I think it needs some polish to maybe perfect the description. But I mean, just the way that you are, and we're going to dive into the Blaus even more to describe how this computations works. But you can see that this is an exponential function that is calculating. It's a formula that's calculating this, and there's another formula that's calculating this, and it's sort of baked into the protocol, so the user don't have to worry about how it's calculated. You can just trust the protocol that it does it. But this is all what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So all of this chart is reflected in the math that's in the stake start, stake end section of the
Right.
Litepaper.
Right. So this is one update. How the computation is made for the profit line. This is how I like to read it. Like if you just take a point in time, you commit it to 100 days, so to speak. Then you sort of see, okay, this is how much I will get, and this is how much what the penalty is, and you can end your stake when you sell, or you can end it before, or you can end it after.
Yeah. So that 71%. That would be an example of somebody doing a stake for about 10,000 days if you did this thing, right? Because that's about 72%. That's where that's where this profit line would look perfect on this chart. So this really needs to be a 3D model, but and Joe can 3D model, so maybe I'll ask him to do it. But there's also graphing programs that can do it for me. So.
Right, you're lucky to have Joad. You're both visual learners and teachers, and he's very good with the aesthetics. So let's dive into the math here, because the burn ratio is this, right? This is for the user. Like I burn 10,000 FENIX, and I burn 10,000 Zen, and I get 1 FENIX for that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So this burn ratio is a constant burn ratio throughout the entire life of Zen on whatever chain it exists on. So right now, Zen is making, I think, 60,000 Zen. Well, when it started, it was making 60,000 Zen a mint. So you could basically get 6 FENIX for 1 Zen. When Zen is 8 years old, it's going to be making 10 Zen a mint. So you're going to have to do lots of mints to get 1 FENIX in the future. But this ratio is constant. So if you burn 10,000 Zen, you will get 1 FENIX.
And on different protocols, you will call it FENIX on ETH and then BFENIX on Binance.
Yeah. I need to figure out what the length limit is for the symbol. But I think, we'll do something like that.
Well, and why do you choose to call it FENIX with 5 letters and not the FNX or something like that?
I think it looks better with the full name. One of the conversations that Johan and I had from design, like I like Zen being the full name of the ticker as well as the name of the symbol. So that's why we wanted something that could be easy to say and not too long. And I think that go ahead.
You just have to, like, if you're on different chains, like we have co-exen and stuff like that. So it might be seven letters long.
Yeah.
But here's what we also need to understand, that when you burn 10,000 Zen and get 1 FENIX, there's actually another FENIX. This is we had a chat yesterday, me and Joe, and we thought about another concept here. So forget about this ritual. But the main thing here is that there's another FENIX being minted as well from the protocol.
Yeah. So one of the things we wanted to do is try to talk about or work on helping people adopt people into the FENIX protocol. So what happens is when you burn your 10,000 Zen, 1 FENIX gets deposited into your wallet, and then a copy of that FENIX gets deposited into what we're calling the adoption reward pool. So as people join the protocol, the more people that join the protocol, the more copies of FENIX get put into this adoption reward pool. And what happens is every 13 weeks, anybody in the community can run a public function called Flush the Adoption Reward Pool. And all of that FENIX that's in that pool will then get dumped into the staker pool. So it's basically like every quarter, there's a bonus that gets paid out to everybody in FENIX for adopting people onto the protocol. Right. And so that's how we're thinking about that bonus. And so the idea is that everybody's really working together to fill up that pool. And the stakers, because the stakers are the ones that are going to capture from the staker pool, are the ones that get the benefit from the people that are being onboarded onto the protocol.
Right. So you burn Zen and you get your FENIX mint, which you then stake. But there's also a copy of FENIX here that goes into a reward adoption reward pool. And then every 13 weeks, someone flushes this pool and gives to the stakers. And this is not done automatic. Someone has to activate it because you can't automate it. So that's why we call it. We thought maybe it's a ritual because you need some engagement. Also, it helps because it it has the function then, okay, something else is created when I mint, gets to this pool, and all the stakers then every 13 weeks get to both activate it and also share this like bonus every 13 weeks. So it becomes sort of this we thought it could be some sort of ritual every 13 weeks. The community gets together and pulls a string, and it gets rewarded to the staker. It becomes a community thing.
Yeah. So what should happen is when the adoption reward pool is flushed, you should see the amount of FENIX in your wallet just like start ticking up, right? Because you own a percentage of the pool. The pool was this big. The pool gets this big. That means that your slice is bigger, so your number should be going up automatically as you see the adoption reward pool get
number go up. Go technology. So does that then come into the? Does that get automatically staked and added to my stake, or is that something that comes in liquid that I then have to stake?
It's automatically staked, and so remember your stake and your percentage or your shares of the staking pool are what's going to determine how fast that number or how much that number goes up, right?
Right.
So that's what that reward is.
Interesting. But then at launch you have sort of an intro. So you deploy the contract, and then you have a 3-week cooldown before this activates. And why do you do it so?
So one of the things that we've seen is the gas prices are crazy, and we want to make sure that people have time to make a plan, figure out when they want to do their stakes, figure out when they want to end their stakes, not have to rush all in at one day to get on board. So basically in the first 3 weeks, the yield is so low that it doesn't even matter what day you start within the first 3 weeks. So all the people that onboard in the first 3 weeks, copies of their FENIX are going to be getting put into this pool and getting put into the pool. Then the person that runs that adoption reward, they will trigger a hyperinflationary event for all of the people that were on FENIX in the first 3 weeks. So it's kind of like a big bonus, like a celebration, the first one, right? After 3 weeks.
So the first 3 weeks, you, me, and Johad and Jack and every other senior, and we're like, okay, we collect, we cooperate and explain to each other, this is how it works, this is how we're gonna do it, and then we have 3 weeks together to cooperate in that, and then everyone who starts their mint one extra FENIX, or everyone who issues FENIX from Burning Zen will distribute one other FENIX to this reward pool, and then everybody who participates there will get it. It's an extra bonus. So that's an early incentive mechanism built in right there.
Exactly, and it's also, like you said, a ritualistic incentive, because it's going to happen every 13 weeks. So every quarter, there's going to be another person. Anybody in the community can click the button and run it, and it will flush the pool to everybody's wallets, all the stakers. To the staker pool.
Right. So it's like a community thing, right? You have, and that's what I think is also brilliant, because it's like with Zen, you are locking up is maybe the wrong word, but you're involving the user in a process with time. So, we are stuck with each other now for 400 days, guys. And you're sort of doing the same thing here. You are attaching the users into a delayed gratification process, and then something happens every 13 weeks. And that's a good foundation to create events for a community to form on. So the social engagement in the tokenomics is also very interesting and very important to discuss, not only the math. So I envisioned right away you have some sort of FENIX Burning Man every 13 weeks, where people all around the world get together or something like that. Maybe in a metaverse, who knows?
We burn like a little bird every 13 weeks, a little fake
bird. Yeah. Interesting. So and inflation, right? So you changed now the inflation from you originally thought that the inflation, and the way to look at it, it's like a pool, right? And each year the pool just gets bigger and bigger by inflation. So you changed this now. So this is not accurate anymore. You changed it from pi 3.14 to the golden ratio 1.1618, is it, or something like that?
Yep.
Why did you do that?
So one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to have a value proposition that was slightly different than the Zen inflation rate at the staking level.
Mm.
So our new inflation rate is lower than the 2% Zen staking inflation rate, which
Ah,
means that
interesting.
over time, FENIX should always be less inflationary than Zen at its terminal staking rate, right? So
Ah.
it will make FENIX actually more rare, even more rare than Zen, because you're already going to get a 10,000 to 1 ratio. But now that the inflation rate is lower, it'll even be more rare. So this next 8 years is the time to onboard people. And then once you get past this 8 years on each one of these chains, it's going to be even more difficult to get this FENIX. And the only people that are going to be producing it are the stakers that are exporting it out. And so
Mm.
hopefully the idea is that the stakers are people that are creative, they have product ideas, and they can build on top of FENIX because it is also a hyperstructure. It's also first principles.
Interesting. I like it because you're using Pi and then you went to Golden Ratio instead, and it's interesting with the math. I heard another stream when you talked about that. I'm very fond of biomimicry and stuff like that myself, and you connected the long term vision here of comparing to the Zen inflation rate, because after 8 years, the inflation from the protocol is 2%, only going to the stakers, of course.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, you wanted to make something that will that have the most effect in time, or will it have a huge effect early on as well?
It's just going to be a time thing. So it's going to take time before this really has the value proposition kicks in. But our staking windows are also a lot longer, right? Zen's is 1,000 days and FENIX's is 20,000 days. So it's a 20 times longer staking window.
Right. Time's flying so fast, Joe. It's so fun to talk about this. But let's move on. So, does it spell like this? Finician.
Yep.
Finician. Okay.
FENIXIAN. I don't know. We'll ask Johad. Johad knows.
Right. So just to show that a bunch of people participate in this pool, right, which is growing with inflation, and assuming that they all choose 1 year and they start at day one and they choose 365 days and also end with the proof of partition at that date. That's their share of the pool, and so just to show that we can break this down into thinking in shares.
Yep.
And that we're multiple people participating in one thing here, right? Do you want to?
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it. How would you?
That is exactly how it works. There's basically a block, and when you start your stake gives you shares, and your shares are what percentage of that block you own. And in this example, everybody owns 1/3. Everybody has 100 shares, and those are calculated by the size and time bonuses. That's how you calculate your shares. And then at the end of your stake, the block will be bigger, because remember, we already made the block big right when the stakes were created. We inflated the block at the beginning. So as soon as first person does their stake for 365 days, the block will actually be the size of the second picture. It'll actually be 30942. It'll be that as soon as they make it. When the second person jumps in and the third person jumps in, then they will own 1/3 of that block. And then it's up to them. Like, think about like a water thing filling up from the bottom up. And so all they have to do as they're doing their stake is just keep letting the water fill up and fill up and fill up until they get to the top. And if they wait 180 days, the water will just unfill all the way back down to the bottom.
Right. It's good with analogies. We speak the same language, you and me, Joe. And here, let's go a little bit into math. Like, how does this all work? Because you have what's important to understand here is that you're calculating your stake at the start with this formula.
Yeah.
With a couple of different formulas, and we have them all here. And I broke them down last time, but in your own words.
Yeah. Okay. So they're really, I think, did one of those get updated? I think the total bonus was updated. The second one.
Staking total bonus.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm using a an exponential like decay function for that right now. To make it that's what puts that curve in the line right now. But we can take a look at that. It's the third one down. That one, yeah.
Right. Okay.
So let's just go through. We can look at them on here. It's pretty simple.
Where we were.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Where we were in the light.
Oh. Yeah, it's maybe simpler to understand this, and then the formulas are changing. Maybe I don't know.
So this total staking bonus is basically just a combination of your time bonus and your size bonus. That's it. You just add those two together.
Right.
The time bonus is based on how long you stake. And so all this math is saying is that the longer you stake, the bigger your bonus is going to be. That's it.
Right.
And the
you're
size,
incentivized right there to choose as more possible because you get a 20% premium.
Yeah, for every year that you add on, right?
Right.
And then the size bonus is very similar, but this is just a linear bonus in this. In the new formula, it actually rewards you more for the more you stake. So if you put in more FENIX in, your reward is just slightly higher for the more FENIX that you put in. So the more you stake, the more your bonus is on the size bonus. The longer you stake, the more your bonus is on the time bonus.
And you got to understand what's happening here, because you're really amplifying the good behavior. And the good behavior is the desired behavior, which in this case is as much as possible, as long as possible, and then keeping that, right? So that's the good behavior. And by adding these bonuses, it creates this super, I mean, you're baking in 20% APY basically with this time bonus here. And also you're adding a 10% size bonus as well on top of that. So you're adding these two together. Yeah.
So what this does is this just says there's no point in doing small stakes and there's no point in doing a bunch of little small stakes. You will lose to somebody who just does one big stake over the time that you do 10 small stakes if you break them apart. And the code actually has a test that actually tries that out. It does like 10 small stakes versus one person who does one big stake, and the reward is not even comparable. So you can test this in the contract right now if you downloaded the code and ran the unit test. So all we want to do is make sure that you understand that your bonus gets better and bigger the longer you do it and the more that you have in that one bonus. Now, if you go over to the share rate, what we do is in order, and this is the innovation that I think Hex came up with, which is the share rate. When the contract starts, your bonus is what your shares are going to be. So if your bonus is 130 and your shares are 1, then that means your share rate is 1, then that means your shares are going to be 130. Now, let's just say somebody ended a stake and they increased the share rate from 1 to 2, right? If they increase the share rate from 1 to 2 and you run your same calculations and your bonus is still 130, then that means that your shares that you're going to get out of the other side are only going to be 65, right?
How does the share rate change? What's the factor that changes the share rate?
The share rate gets changed based on the maximum return of investment that anybody has ever had in the contract. So what's probably going to happen is after that 3-week cooldown, if somebody ends a stake the day after that, their share rate is going to ratchet up pretty high because they're going to have their initial, whatever 1 or 2 or 10 FENIX. And then they're going to get this huge influx of FENIX from all the community members that all piled all their FENIX into that adoption pool. And then if they end right after that, they're going to go from 1 to like maybe 100, which is going to increase that share rate because they just made 100% or 100x return on investment. So that increase will then be the new share rate.
Right. And for everybody.
Exactly. For everybody who starts a stake after, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what
it's a constant.
Yeah. So that's what makes it equitable. So now anybody who starts after that is going to have this, 100x share rate for the foreseeable future until somebody else ends another stake that's going to ratchet up the share rate even higher.
So you're incentivizing, of course, like the very best is to go in with as much as possible for as long as possible. But like 50, I mean, I'm all for like longevity, but 55 years, that's a long time, you know?
I mean, it's
so,
not young.
so how,
it's not a lot if you're 2.
but yeah, true. But how do you think people should think about this when it comes to this time aspect here? Should people split them up in different kind of, like have different wallets as well with different time horizons for different purposes, and yeah, how would you do it?
I think lots of people have different strategies. For me, I like one annual distribution that can like basically cover you for the whole year. I don't really like lots of little like getting paid weekly. I
Right.
don't need to manage my money in that micro of increments. But everybody has different things, If you're used to working and you're used to getting paid every 2 weeks, then maybe every 2 week, share stake expiring makes sense for you. If
Right.
you can manage money over a longer period of time, then every year probably makes sense. You have it come out at, sometime in the year it's convenient for you to be at home and end your stake, and then just use that money for the whole year and then do it again next year. So there's different strategies that people can follow for stake ladders. And it's going to be interesting to hear the community, because I know different people in the community have different strategies. So that's the beauty of the Zen and FENIX community, is that everybody who has an idea is going to share their idea and explain to you why they're thinking like that. So
Exactly.
I would actually be more interested in what other people are thinking versus my idea, because my ideas usually don't end up being the best right out of the gate.
You're just the maker. You're not the user.
Yeah.
but like, here's the thing: you're really amplifying good behavior, and you're really getting a lot of bonuses in time and size. And that's not even consideration if you're a good boy with good boy pants. Everyone else is can't hold their time. You're going to get more piece of the pie, so to speak, or more yield, however you want to say it, because those penalties goes back. We're going to get to that later, to the pool. But that's just what's happening in the FENIX world. We also have to realize what's happening beneath in the Zen world, because Zen gets disinflationary with time. It's going to get harder and harder to mint with time. So if we zoom out a little bit in a multi-year perspective, I mean, now it's super easy to be a Zen billionaire and just mint a wallet, and after a few months you have a few. But in 5 years, that's not going to be the case. So like you're that early incentive, the early adopters really have this opportunity here, which they should, because early adopters are building the community and their shape, so they need to be rewarded for that, so to speak. But it's really interesting, the dynamic between Zen and FENIX here. As Zen gets harder to mint, that's also an amplifier of this yield.
Yeah, I think one of the things to think about is that, as somebody who's participating in this protocol early, you have an opportunity for an asymmetric upside reward, right? You're taking a risk by, engaging in these protocols and engaging in these contracts, but the reward could be asymmetric, once Zen becomes that protocol that everybody's using, right? If Zen is the thing that everybody moves over to, then you're rewarded for taking this asymmetric risk. And you can place a small bet that can have a very large impact.
Asymmetric, that's the word. You are better with words than me. So this also I wanted to. I'm just going. If you want to mention something, you can.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I can do it. But this is also what I think is so beautiful, right? Let's go with this is the new one. But what I want to explain is there's a formula to calculate this, and you can see that it's exponential. That's why it looks like that. And there's another formula to calculate here. So if you're before your chosen time, this formula kicks in, and if you're after, this is the formula that will calculate. Because remember, we calculate here to start how much you're going to get, and then you will only get that if you finish your time. But if you finish before, then there's another formula who will dictate how much of that you get to keep.
Exactly. Yeah. So the penalty is what gets redistributed back to the pool, and then you get to keep whatever's left over. And so the formula on the left is the early ending penalty, and the formula on the right is the late ending penalty. And the contract just keeps track of when you have your stake. All we have to do is figure out how long of the stake you've completed, and then we can calculate these penalties.
Exactly. Mr. Capazzo is in the house also. What a nice day. So I mean, that's just beautiful how that's been made. And then what happens to the penalties? You end your stake, and either the whole FENIX goes to your wallet, and if there is penalties, they go to a staking pool. Period. Yep. They don't go to some. Right?
Yeah, the penalties. The penalties.
All of them.
Yeah, everything goes right back to the pool. So
right,
all penalties. If you have other stakes that are open, other stakes will get part of your penalties, and other participants in FENIX will get parts of the penalties as well. And remember that penalty ratio is based on your shares. How much share of that pool do you have?
Right. So if I have more share than you, then I will get equivalently more of the penalties coming in.
Exactly.
So there's just like, it's a rain of things coming in here, right? It's the size bonus, it's the stake bonus, it's the penalties coming in, it's the extra FENIX that gets minted in the first time, that then every 13 weeks just get like FENIX rains on me.
Yeah, it's raining penalties.
Right, in a good way.
Yeah.
And then this leads to the share that everyone gets depends then on how much then has been burned, how much of FENIX that is, the size, the staking time, how early and how precise. So the desired behavior that we talked about in the beginning, we can sort of prove.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prove schematically.
Yeah.
And then we have this is the old moves, first mover launch bonus. We forget about
we got rid of that.
Stuff. And what have you done instead? I think we talked about it, right? It's
the adoption the adoption reward is what
you removed that, and exactly, made it much simpler to understand.
Yeah, the old system was designed, basically was incentivizing people to join Zen and not necessarily incentivizing people to join FENIX. And so we wanted to come up with something that was more protocol specific, that would incentivize people to burn their Zen for FENIX and give it to the rest of the community. So if I onboard somebody, then their burn goes to all the stakers that are part of the protocol, right?
Right. Exactly. That's very, very interesting dynamic. So, guys, you can start preparing your questions for Joe. We're going to talk about deployment, and then we're going to that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Yeah.
And where are you now in the process? Is this correct? And by the way, guys, this is where you go into the Telegram and join the FENIX community.
Yeah, so t.me/FENIX_protocol. You can't see the underscore in there. And then that's also our Twitter, is twitter.com//FENIX_protocol. And then I'm on Twitter at Joe Blau. And you can also see it in my picture image. It's Joe Blau _FENIX_protocol.
Right.
So yeah, let's go to the process. Oh, whoop, I just got blocked.
Exactly. So you've written Litepaper and you're iterating it, but you're doing the code parallel as well.
Yeah. So right now we've completed the Litepaper. We've gotten the code. We've gotten the community feedback. What we're going to do next is take that feedback, so the current version of the Litepaper, and finish up all of the edits that need to be made to the project to make sure that math is all working correctly, and write the unit tests. Yeah, so we're right there today. We're going to do a little bit of updates to the code to incorporate that community feedback. After that, we're going to go to testnet so that we can let people play with FENIX on testnet. And so you can start minting FENIX. You can start minting Zen on testnet if you don't have any, if you want to play with the protocol. You can go to testnet testnet.zen.network or testnet.zen.fyi if you want to start minting some Zen on the test network. And then while testnet is running, we're going to go conduct the audit. And then once the audit is done, we will go to mainnet.
Exciting. So when can we expect to play with the testnet? I'm super excited. When in time?
It will be.
Oh, now I'm also one of those who ask the
when, sir. It'll be very soon. I'm thinking sometime next week.
Amazing. And the audit, it will be a couple of weeks away and stuff like that. So we're like, it's February the 1st now. Maybe launch like late March, or depending, of course, how the audit goes and stuff like that.
Yeah, the audit process, this is going to be my first cryptocurrency audit. I've done audits before for other cryptography things, but this is my first crypto audit. So I don't know what the process is. I know a lot of really good auditors and a lot of really good Solidity developers. So what we're trying to do right now with the coding and the community feedback is make the project as easy for the auditors to understand as possible, so that they're not spending time trying to figure out, why do you have this there? What is this? You need to delete this. This doesn't make sense. We're doing that up front. And then the goal is that the audit should be as smooth as possible.
Right. Yeah, it's only 186 lines of code, or it was. Maybe it's around there, I guess.
It's actually less now, but
it's less. Okay, yeah, I thought it would be more.
Well, there's the actual logic part of the code is lower because I deleted some stuff. So
you removed logic.
Yeah. It was logic that wasn't necessary. It had to do with that old burning mechanism, the launch bonus stuff. I took some of that stuff out, and I also figured out that there were certain things in the stake thing that we don't need to keep track of. So in removing all that stuff, it went down a little bit. So
imagine if you could do that with a person. Remove logic is not necessary.
I think some people are already like that.
Yeah. So let's see, guys. We look forward to testnet to play with this. But like the thing I want people to understand what kind of protocols they're interacting with, and not just like number go up, go technology and stuff. And I think it's really well invested time now to really study this and to understand the mechanics of it. Because the better you see something, the more educated decisions you can take on your participation and your investments, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So we have some time, and then how does the rollout look like on the different chains?
Yeah, so once we go, we're going to basically follow the same trajectory that Zen followed. So we're going to start on Ethereum. Then I think Polygon was next, or Binance, one of those two was next.
Yeah.
And we're just going to follow the same, Binance. We're just going to follow the same rollout that Zen did. So we're going to make sure that our RPCs are working, or basically the backend, the thing that we talk to the blockchain with. We want to make sure that that's solid when we interact with Ethereum. And then as we go from chain to chain to chain, we want to make sure that everything is reliable and solid as we make our way around all 10 chains.
And you have a good understanding about the 10 chains already, because you've interacted with them, you've tried them with the Zen.fyi, so it's very easy for you, like relatively, to understand what's going on the different chains and how it works. And do you, like, in terms of rollout, you start with Ethereum, and then you have maybe 1 week or a few days in between each deployment, I guess. You want to start with one chain just to see everything works and it's all good. If something doesn't work for whatever reason, which you don't know, for us it worked, but you don't want to go to every other chain right away, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we want to make sure that we're doing this in a way that makes sense. We don't want to just go to every chain. We want to make sure that it's working. And what it also allows us to do is it allows our site to kind of scale out. Because if we just launch on all chains at the same time, the site's going to get bombarded. So it allows us to have an adoption curve of users, and then go to a different adoption curve and a different adoption curve and a different adoption curve. And it allows us to slowly scale the usage of our site. And then, you don't have to come back to the site every single day to check everything, unless you just want to see, your stakes. And hopefully we can integrate with some of the other people in the community to make a higher quality, dashboard experience. But we want to make sure that we're launching in a very controlled fashion so that we don't have any problems.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that too. Thanks for reminding me. Like the BI view of this, like to read the different data and stuff like that. I know you're a big fan of that as well. So that's probably something you're going to have on. What's the site going to be? Have you decided? This is going to be FENIX.com or?
It's FENIX.FYI. It's up right now. It's just there's nothing there.
Okay. All right. All right. So what's your thoughts on X1?
I'm excited about X1. I think it's going to.
I seen you've been there and getting your hands dirty already.
Yeah. It's an exciting innovation, I think, in the community. It's going to be, the speed of it is very, very fast, and I think that it's going to open up opportunities for developing different types of user experiences that you couldn't develop before on Ethereum just because of the block speed and things like that. So I'm excited to see the community on board, and I'm excited to see all the activity that the developers are putting into it right now and building and deploying on the chain.
And you've seen how it grows, the developers. It's growing exponentially for every week. More and more engagement, and people are happy and they're building stuff. And it's really the start of a developer community. And I think we can have a lot of fun on X1 and try out stuff and deploy a lot of stuff before we go to the other chains as well. Let's see here. Let's just before we go into the FAQ. Let's see here. There was some, I don't know, you made some changes here. You changed the max stake length from 50 to 55 years. Was there a reason for that?
We just made it that because it's a Fibonacci number and it wasn't before.
Okay, I love it. So just a small recap, guys. We've been talking about what is FENIX. We can work on some elevator pitches. We should have 10 different of them. There's why they're coming from, where they're coming from, who they are. We'll be talking about first principles, how it fits in very well with first principles. We'll be talking about innovation Lego. Very interesting how they connected the dots and how they came down to their own. They based their own principles based on that. The user experience, it's very simple for a user to participate. You can game it however you want. We talked about also incentives, this reward pool that's gonna make the incentives go berserk, and how the pools work. We talked about the mathematics, so you can, and remember, this is there's a newer iteration which you can find in the Litepaper that Joe is constantly doing. We talked about that the penalties go to the completely period to the pool, and also deployment, and we're very excited about testnets. So did he explain if Gwei will be insane for end stake?
Yeah, so this is a good question, and he also asked a follow-up of how I know what the Gwei is going to be. So in the framework that I'm using to develop the smart contract, there is actually a gas report that can be generated based off of the unit tests. So the unit tests are running. They're like starting stakes, ending stakes, starting max length stakes, starting stakes that fail. They're doing everything that a user would try to do, and they're simulating how people would use the project, right? They're doing stake ladders. Everything is being done by the contract in these tests. And then what the test does is it actually measures in real time how much gas each operation takes. So in asking, how do I know what the end stake Gwei will be? If you just do forge test and type Gwei report, it actually prints out a Gwei report of every single operation, best case scenario, average case scenario, the median, and then the max, like the worst case scenario. So I can just look and tell you that starting a stake is going to be at worst case about 200,000 Gwei, right? And I can just look at that and it tells me that. I can tell you that ending a stake is going to be at worst 34,000 Gwei, right? It's in the gas report. So I can look and see, and I can already tell before this contract is launched once it gets compiled and optimized, I already know what the, quote unquote prices of every call are going to be. And so one of the things I'm doing right now is trying to optimize these calls, because networks like Ethereum, these numbers make a big difference. And so I'm doing a couple of little optimizations, but I'm sure the auditors will have other tips and tricks that will make the optimizations, that can add a few more optimizations as well. So.
Right. How does FENIX work in an environment where the gas prices are very high versus very low? Is there any is there any conclusions to draw from that, basically, from a user perspective?
I think, you want to build your protocol as tight as possible, because you're deploying it and it's immutable. And you'll never know what the protocol owners are going to do to the cost of the operations, right? Because in crypto, when you're running a smart contract, every operation has a cost. If you add two numbers, that costs something. You subtract a number, that costs something. So you want to make it as cheap as possible for the users, while still maintaining the value proposition of what the contract is supposed to do. So that's really what we are striving for as we're building and developing the protocol. And so I've been actually shaving a lot of gas costs off of the contract by deleting stuff, reorganizing stuff. Just the order of things makes a difference in the contract. So I've been going through and doing that over the last day or two. And now I need to incorporate these final changes, and then we can, deploy it on a test net and have people play with it.
Amazing. So what do you want from the community right now? How can we help you in the best way? Is it to talk about it and to share it, of course, and to dig down deep? But when it comes to the construction, like, is there any user feedback you want, or stuff like that?
Yeah, if you want to come to FENIX_protocol, the Telegram, and chat, any feedback there will be greatly appreciated. On the Litepaper, if you can make some of the graphs a little bit easier to understand, or if you have any ideas, that would be helpful. I think one thing that's going to be very helpful is the testnet. So making sure that you have some testnet Zen to be able to play with FENIX on the testnet. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest request, is go to testnet.zen.fyi or testnet.zen.network and pick whatever chain you want. I think right now, Zen is running on Ethereum's testnet. It's running on Polygon's testnet. It's running on Binance Smart Chain's testnet, and it's running on Pulse Chain testnet. Go on there, use those, and then you can play with the contracts on there. And so that way, when we launch on testnet, you'll have Zen that you can actually burn and then play with the rest of the protocol, do some stakes, practice, and see how the UI looks.
Right. Super interesting. And I've seen some screenshots. You shared some screenshots from how the UI will look, and it looks absolutely stunning.
Yeah, there's a couple of ideas that we designed that I want to put into Zen.fyi, but I'll do those after we launch.
I think so. So, like, the base, from my perspective, like, the base functionality of the protocol is genius and stuff like that. But what we could iterate a bit more, perhaps, is this incentive mechanism, like how that fits into the community aspect of incentives to get people to get in, because it sort of has built-in virality too, right? In the sense, and this is something I want to highlight. We talked a little bit about it, but the fact that, because when you mint a FENIX, another FENIX gets created that goes to this pool that gets flushed every 13 weeks. That means that if there's more people getting adopted into FENIX, that's going to yield more rewards for everyone. So it's sort of the similar fashion that Zen protocol has, in the sense that you have your mint formula that's calculating your mint is dependent on the log2 of the delta rank, right? So the higher the global rank goes, the more you mint. And here it's a similar aspect. So I think that's a very beautiful addition to this, because it becomes sort of this community aspect, like, hey, let's do this together.
Yep.
It's a very simple way to incorporate it, but it has a super powerful effect, I think.
Yeah. My onboard, if I knew a whale, my onboard would help everybody else who's already a FENIX staker.
Right. So very interesting, Joe. Thank you so much for coming on here, and it was a lot of fun. Any
Thanks for having me.
closing thoughts?
I really appreciate you for hosting me. You've been super gracious and given a lot of really good feedback over the course of the couple of weeks that we've been chatting. And I also want to let everybody know, follow me on Twitter. I'm at Joe Blau. And then also follow us on Twitter for the FENIX protocol. It's at FENIX_protocol. And then join our Telegram, which is t.me/FENIX_protocol. And if you have any questions or comments, definitely hop in the Telegram. There are 659 people in there. And so if you need help, there are lots of people that know just as much as I do in there about the protocol. So you can get a lot of feedback there. And I'm sure once the testnet is ready, it's going to be announced on my Twitter and also in that Telegram. So that's where you're going to get your information first.
That's where you meet Bling Blau.
That's right. Bling Blau.
Right. Bling Blau. Thank you so much, Joe. I'll see you in the metaverse, and let's do another stream when you have the testnet live, and let's play with that soon.
Yeah, it'll be cool to do a testnet demo. So
right, cool,
awesome.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We sort of have to take this high approach and this very deep depth into these protocols first to understand how they work, and with time, once we sort of set the protocols, and when we have tweaked every little stone and figured it out, then we can compartmentalize that into something more understandable and something more user friendly to the average user. So we have to start with covering the whole aspects of everything here. And I think, Joe, what do you say? I think we covered the rest is details, so to speak, but we covered the most parts.
Yeah, we got the good high level bullet points, and it's all about the details. But I think for the average person, unless they really want to dig into it, they should just know, burn your Zen for FENIX, and then stake it as long and as much as you possibly can in one stake. That's the key.
All right, amazing. Let's do a high five.
All right, this way. Wait, no, this way.
Yeah. There we go. There, bam. All right. Okay, Joe. All the best.
All right.
See you in Telegram, guys.
Yep. See you.
Goodbye.